Hey everyone, Eric here. Thanks for tuning in. Are you confused about the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA? What about the Roth 401k and the traditional 401k? I understand that I just said the words Roth and traditional way too many times over the past few sentences, but what I wanted to cover today was some of the similarities and some of the differences between these investment vehicles. Make sure to watch until the end of this video where I conclude once and for all which one is best. But before we get started, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already to join the Millipreneur community. And also leave a like on this video if I provide you any value or Lola will be really sad. Having said that, enjoy the video. First off, I wanted to cover the Roth Individual Retirement Account or the Roth IRA. There are some great advantages to investing in a Roth IRA, but it does have its downsides. Let's start with the advantages of investing in a Roth IRA and what it actually entails. You can start a Roth IRA with a company like Charles Schwab, Vanguard, or Betterment, but what it essentially allows you to do is invest up to $6,000 post-tax dollars per year into this retirement account. Both the money that you invest into your Roth IRA, which is known as your principal investment, as well as the interest that you accumulate on your account, which is known as your earnings, will grow tax-free. Since the government has already taken its share of your money in the form of taxes, you won't have to pay any taxes or fees when you actually pull out that money at retirement age.
Where's all your money gone, Daddy?
Taxes.
However, you do have to wait until the age of at least 59 and a half in order to pull out that money without penalty. I don't know about you, but I get really excited when I'm able to look at my Roth IRA and see compounding interest at work. Look, I'm a finance dweeb. These types of things make me happy. Cut me some slack. According to Investopedia, compound interest is defined as the interest calculated on the initial principal, which also includes all of the accumulated interest from previous periods on a deposit or on a loan. Remember, your principal investment is just the money that you've put into the account, while your interest that you've accumulated are the earnings for just having the money in there in the first place. Compound interest also grows your portfolio much more rapidly than simple interest. For example, let's say that you loan your friend $10,000 at a flat rate of 5%. Can you guess how much your friend owes you? If you answered $500, you'd be correct. Or maybe your friend didn't pay you back, in which case you probably shouldn't lend that person any more money moving forward.
Where's my money?
So now that you understand the difference between simple and compounding interest, now let's see the Roth IRA in action. Let's say that you're in your mid-20s and you decide that investing in a Roth IRA is a smart idea. A wise choice indeed. Assuming that you invest the maximum of $6,000 per year or $500 per month until the age of 65, you would have accumulated over $1.2 million in your Roth IRA. Congratulations, you're now considered a millionaire and you can go ahead and brag to your friends. However, I'm sure that you can become a millionaire much more quickly. The next advantage of investing in a Roth IRA is your ability to access your principal investment prior to retirement age. For example, let's say that you've invested $50,000 into your Roth IRA and have accumulated $10,000 in interest. Your Roth is now worth $60,000, which is $50,000 of principal plus $10,000 in interest. You actually have the power to withdraw your $50,000 principal investment whenever you like without taxes or fees. This is assuming that you've had your money in the account for more than 5 years, but if you've accumulated $50,000, then that would be the case. So technically, a Roth IRA can be used kind of like a savings account, but I don't necessarily recommend doing so. Instead, make sure that you have an emergency fund set up with between 6 to 9 months of your annual salary. And also make sure that your Roth IRA is well funded so you can have a comfortable retirement. Now let's move on to some of the disadvantages of having a Roth IRA. Although I said previously in the video that using post-tax dollars is a plus or a positive, it could also be seen as a negative. When you're investing in a Roth, you are contributing money that has already been taxed by the government. I'm sure you've noticed by now, but when you receive your paycheck, you would have had a lot more money if you could somehow avoid taxes.
It's the worst part of the game.
Is what?
Taxes.
The money that you receive in your paycheck, which is known as your net income, is significantly smaller than that of your gross income, which is money pre-tax. This means that you'll have a lot less money to invest in your Roth IRA versus if you had invested in a pre-tax vehicle like a traditional 401k, which I'm about to cover. This is especially true for me considering that since I am in a commission-based position, I get taxed nearly 40% on my sales. I think this is ridiculous and I'm going to take the steps that are necessary in order to avoid taxes.
FBI, open up!
Legally, of course. The next disadvantage about using a Roth IRA is that you're not able to invest any more than $6,000 into the account. There's simply no way around this unless you are over the age of 50, in which case you can invest up to $7,000 annually. So if you do want to invest a larger dollar amount, I would recommend checking the traditional 401k or the Roth 401k. And lastly, I mentioned this before, but this is a long-term strategy, so you're not able to access any interest that you accumulate on the account until after the age of 59 and a half, at least without penalty. Be aware that if you do elect to pull out any interest or earnings from your Roth IRA prior to the age of 59 and a half, you will be assessed a 10% penalty and will be taxed based on your current income tax bracket. Also, keep in mind that if you withdraw any of your principal investment from your Roth IRA, you will actually still only be able to invest up to $6,000 annually. Now, there are some exceptions to the early withdrawal penalty, but just as a general rule of thumb, I would advise against pulling out any interest or earnings from your Roth IRA. Your goal should be to save these accumulated funds for your retirement. All right, so now that you understand the Roth IRA, let's go ahead and talk about the traditional 401k, which is a very popular retirement vehicle as well. The traditional 401k is an employer-sponsored retirement vehicle that allows you to invest up to $19,500 pre-tax dollars into the account. However, if you are over the age of 50, then at that point you can contribute up to $26,000 per year. You'll notice that this is a significantly higher limit than that of the Roth IRA. This is why your gross income is much larger than your net income, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because I think that my net income is gross. However, if you elect to invest a portion of your paycheck into your 401k, you will not be taxed on that money until you decide to withdraw it past retirement age. Since Uncle Sam has not taken its share of your money, you will have a larger pool of moolah in your 401k. This will allow for your money to grow much more rapidly, considering that there's a larger dollar amount in the account and you're earning interest on that dollar amount. In addition, it is common that your employer will match a certain percentage of your salary into your 401k. The most common match provided by employers is 50% of what you put in up to 6% of your salary. For example, if your annual income was $50,000 per year and you invest $3,000 into your 401k, then your employer would then match you and put in $1,500 into your account. So instead of just having that $3,000 that you invested into your 401k, you would actually have $4,500. Now you can absolutely invest more than $3,000 into your traditional 401k, but just understand that your employer will not match you if you do. This is essentially free money and I highly recommend taking advantage of it. Now, the last advantage of having a traditional 401k is that you're able to deduct the money that you put into the account from your taxes. Now, let's use an extreme example, but let's say that you're making $50,000 per year and you invest the maximum of $19,500 into your account. The IRS now considers your annual income to be $30,500 as opposed to $50,000, which is $50,000 minus the $19,500 that you invested into your 401k, if that makes sense. As a result, you may see a much larger tax refund when you go and file your taxes, but I would consult with a CPA about this. Now, as with all investment vehicles, the 401k also has its downsides. The first disadvantage of using a traditional 401k is that when you do elect to actually withdraw your money, you will be taxed on it. When you use this investment strategy, what you are essentially doing is avoiding short-term taxes so that your portfolio could grow more rapidly, but you will eventually have to pay those taxes when you access the money at retirement age or after the age of 59 and a half. The next disadvantage of using a 401k is that you will actually be forced to start withdrawing your money at the age of 70 and a half. In other words, you can't just leave your money in the account to continue growing without pulling out the required minimum distributions or RMD. Roth IRAs, on the other hand, do not have such requirements. Now, the last disadvantage of using a traditional 401k is very similar to that of the Roth IRA, but if you decide to access your money prior to the age of 59 and a half, you will be assessed a 10% penalty. Again, this is a long-term strategy, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. All right, so now that we've went over the Roth IRA and the traditional 401k, I wanted to show you a picture of my sister for comedic relief.
Wait till you see the. No, 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 no.
Nice. Okay, moving on. So the more recent investment strategy that I've heard of is the Roth 401k that's also provided by employers. Since Roth 401ks are also employer sponsored, you won't have to spend time picking and choosing what your investment strategy will look like. You are also able to contribute up to $19,500 annually into your Roth 401k, which is identical to that of the traditional 401k and much larger than that of the Roth IRA at $6,000 per year. Thus, the larger your dollar amount in your portfolio, the more rapidly it will grow when the stock market is performing well. And just a quick side note, if your employer offers a match on the traditional 401k, it is likely that they're also going to offer a match on the Roth 401k. This match, however, will be with pre-tax dollars, which means that it will be going into the traditional 401k portion. This means that when you try and access the money that your employer has put in for you, it would be out of the traditional 401k portion and it will be taxed. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing considering that it's still free money that your employer is investing into your account. One of the disadvantages of using a Roth 401k is that since it's employer sponsored, you simply have less options to invest in. And you'll also have required minimum distributions, which means that you will be forced to pull out a portion of your money at the age of 70 and a half. So sorry future kids and sorry future grandkids, that money's gonna be mine. The last retirement vehicle that I'm going to be covering is the traditional IRA. The traditional IRA is similar to that of the traditional 401k, but it does have a few distinguishers. The first difference is that traditional IRAs are not employer sponsored. You have to start these on your own. Because this is not an employer sponsored account, there will be no match on it. The next difference is that you're not able to invest any more than $6,000 annually if you are under the age of 50 and no more than $7,000 if you are over the age of 50. These are the same contribution limits as the Roth IRA. The last difference is that you'll have a lot more options to invest your money in than if you had invested in an employer-sponsored vehicle. And just a quick side note, if you had started a 401k but are no longer employed at the company, your account would now be considered a traditional IRA. Since the account is no longer employer-sponsored, it can't be considered a 401k, if you get what I'm saying. Here's a picture that'll give you a good idea as to what the similarities and differences are between these accounts. I'll leave it up for a second. Alright, so now that you understand the differences and similarities between all of these retirement vehicles, let's address the question that you've probably been asking yourself since the beginning of this video, which is which one is better? Well, it depends. In my opinion, a combination of both pre-tax and post-tax investments will help diversify your portfolio. Currently, I have my own Roth IRA with Vanguard, but I have held off from investing in the account so that I can save up all my money, put it into my high-yield savings account, and purchase my first investment property. If you are in your teens, 20s, or 30s, I would probably recommend investing in a Roth IRA first. Max out your contributions if you have the means to do so, considering that it's one of the easiest ways to become a millionaire by the time that you retire. Then, assuming that you're employed and that your employer offers a 401k, consider investing in that as well, especially if they offer a match. If you are over the age of 40, it is likely that you're probably making more money than somebody in their 20s. And because of this, you would automatically be placed in a higher tax bracket. It may make more sense to invest in a traditional 401k to lessen your tax burden and then invest any additional funds that you have into your Roth IRA. Everybody has a different circumstance, and there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all investment strategy, but what I will say is that the more money that you put away for your retirement, the better. Before making any investments, make sure to do your own research and not just take my word for it. I'm just some random guy on the internet. But if you do have any questions, feel free to comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. And that's it. I hope that you now understand the differences and similarities between all of these retirement vehicles and are equipped with the information that you need to make a wise decision. Thanks again for watching, and feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and leave a like on the video. Have a great rest of your day and see you on the next video.